This is Chapter 7 of The Boy's Life of Mark Twain. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, visit LibriVox.org. The Boy's Life of Mark Twain by Albert Bigelow Paine, Chapter 7, The Apprentice. The terms of Samuel Clemens's apprenticeship were the usual thing for that day, board and clothes. "More board than clothes, and not much of either," Mark Twain used to say. "I was supposed to get 2 suits of clothes a year, but I didn't get them. I got 1 suit and took the rest out in Ament's old garments, which didn't fit me in any noticeable way. I was only about half as big as he was, and when I had on one of his shirts I felt as if I had on a circus tent. I had to turn the trousers up to my ears to make them short enough." Another apprentice, a huge creature named Wales McCormick, was so large that Ament's clothes were much too small for him. The 2 apprentices, fitted out with their employer's cast-off garments, were amusing enough, no doubt. Sam and Wales ate in the kitchen at first, but later at the family table with Mr. and Mrs. Ament, and Pet McMurray, a journeyman printer. McMurray was a happy soul, as one could almost guess from his name. He had traveled far and learned much. What the 2 apprentices did not already know, Pet McMurray could teach them. Sam Clemens had promised to be a good boy, and he was so, by the standards of boyhood. He was industrious, regular at his work, quick to learn, kind and truthful. Angels could hardly be more than that in a printing office. But when food was scarce, even an angel, a young printer angel, could hardly resist slipping down the cellar stairs at night for raw potatoes, onions, and apples, which they cooked in the office, where the boys slept on a pallet on the floor. Wales had a wonderful way of cooking a potato which his fellow apprentice never forgot. How one wishes for a photograph of Sam Clemens at that period! But in those days there were only daguerreotypes, and they were expensive things. There is a letter, though, written long afterward, by Pet McMurray to Mark Twain, which contains this paragraph: "If your memory extends so far back, you will recall a little sandy-haired boy of nearly a quarter of a century ago, in the printing office at Hannibal, over the Brittingham drug-store, mounted upon a little box at the case, who used to love to sing so well the expression of the poor drunken man who was supposed to have fallen by the wayside, 'If ever I get up again, I'll stay up, if I can.' And with this portrait we must be content. We cannot doubt its truth. Sam was soon office favorite, and in time became chief standby. When he had been at work a year, he could set type accurately, run the job press to the tune of Annie Laurie, and he had charge of the circulation. That is to say, he carried the papers, a mission of real importance, for a long sagging span of telegraph wire had reached across the river to Hannibal, and Mexican war news delivered hot from the front gave the messenger a fine prestige. He even did editing, of a kind. That is to say, when Ament was not in the office and copy was needed, Sam hunted him up, explained the situation, and saw that the necessary matter was produced. He was not ambitious to write, not then. He wanted to be a journeyman printer, like Pet, and travel and see the world. Sometimes he thought he would like to be a clown, or end-man in a minstrel troupe. Once for a week he served as subject for a traveling hypnotist, and was dazzled by his success. But he stuck to printing, and rapidly became a neat, capable workman. Ament gave him a daily task, after which he was free. By 3 in the afternoon he was likely to finish his stint. Then he was off for the river or the cave, joining his old comrades. Or perhaps he would go with Laura Hawkins to gather wild columbine on the high cliff above the river, known as Lover's Leap. When winter came, these 2 sometimes went to Bear Creek skating, or together they attended parties, where the old-fashioned games Ring Round Rosie and Dusty Miller were the chief amusements. In The Gilded Age, Laura Hawkins at 12 is pictured with her dainty hands propped into the ribbon-bordered pockets of her apron, a vision to warm the coldest heart and bless and cheer the saddest. That was the real Laura, though her story in that book in no way resembles the reality. It was just at this time that an incident occurred which may be looked back upon now as a turning point in Samuel Clemens's life. Coming home from the office one afternoon, he noticed a square of paper being swept along by the wind. He saw that it was printed, was interested professionally in seeing what it was like. He chased the flying scrap and overtook it. It was a leaf from some old history of Joan of Arc, and pictured the hard lot of the maid in the Tower at Rouen, reviled and mistreated by her ruffian captors. There were some paragraphs of description, but the rest was pitiful dialogue. Sam had never heard of Joan before. He knew nothing of history. He was no reader. Orion was fond of books, and Pamela. Even little Henry had read more than Sam. But now, as he read, there awoke in him a deep feeling of pity and indignation, and with it a longing to know more of the tragic story. It was an interest that would last his life through, and in the course of time find expression in one of the rarest books ever written. The first result was that Sam began to read. He hunted up everything he could find on the subject of Joan, and from that went into French history in general, indeed, into history of every kind. Samuel Clemens had suddenly become a reader, almost a student. He even began the study of languages, German and Latin, but was not able to go on for lack of time and teachers. He became a hater of tyranny, a champion of the weak. Watching a game of marbles or tops, he would remark to some offender, in his slow, drawling way, "You mustn't cheat that boy," and the cheating stopped, or trouble followed. End of chapter 7.